Yeah.
literally that. It's a management and a tactician thing, right? And so like nobody's going to get the perfect roles every season. In fact, a lot of the time,
Whew.
one of the roles you do get out of the many isn't something that you're ecstatic about. But I will say, a lot of the time, that's the role, that's the team that'll teach you the most
Yeah.
because you really weren't locked in for it, and now you're doing it, and you're trying to make the best of it. And for those people, that's where the most growth comes from, is out of that experience. So it's something where like you should give it some thought, but take some advice from what I've said and try to keep yourself on far end spectrums for now as a young coach, because you learn so much here that doesn't necessarily apply here, and the
No, and
same
I get to hone my craft with the
vice
olders
versa.
because with the olders I'm able to express everything that I have on my mind. Well, maybe not everything. Of course, there has to be a little filter, but there's the majority of these extra, more in-depth concepts that I can't teach the youngers because they just do not understand the vocabulary that I'm using. Can be most definitely used with the olders, and it's understood with the olders, which is what's so nice about having the mix of both, because if I just had one, I may get bored of it too much.
Yeah. If you just had the olders, you wouldn't learn what it means to teach fundamentals, body mechanics, understanding of the
That too.
game, all of this. If you just had the youngers, you'd probably get burnt out from how hard it is and how much attention they require and all of the information that needs to be shared in a uh,
Oof.
understandable way
Yeah.
for a 7-year-old.
Wow.
Which, going into principles again, like Johan, it's one of the hardest things to do as a coach. So that's why I say you should shoot to have teams on both ends of the spectrum, because I feel like that's where your greatest growth will come as a young new coach in the game. Then, since you're being asked this question, it's about, in those age groups, what level of team are you being allotted to? Because that makes a significant difference too.
Oh, because, geez, the thing that I have noticed in this little time that I've been playing or coaching with very young kids is the fact that there are some times when the player doesn't really want to be there. And for me personally, those are the times that it is hardest to coach someone because they're not willing to put out effort to be able to get something out of it.
I think Pep said that recently, is that why would I ever want to make somebody stay here who doesn't want to be here? That is the truest poison and toxic player within your group that will bring everyone else down. I think that he's spot on when he says that, because as a coach, when you show up to the field and you can sense that somebody doesn't want to be there, the other 19 guys a part of this session feel that.
Of course.
And now the entire session takes a hit because of the synergy. That's a problem. And throughout the season, the amount of, we'll call them headaches, stresses, conversations that you have to go through with said player just to keep them engaged is taking away your energy, your ability, and your focus from all of the other things that need to be addressed.
You want to know something that I really, really appreciated from a parent? And this was a couple weeks ago. Their son was not enjoying the game.
That's
And
hard to hear, man.
obviously, it's something hard to hear, something that we do not want to hear, because as our jobs in the beginning of this development is to try and make everyone fall in love with the game.
Share
And
our love with them.
and obviously, for me, it hurt because I wanted to know what the reason why, and like why, what were all the factors that were making him make the decision. But it's a 6-year-old, so there's not really that much in between the lines.
It really could have just been enjoyment,
Yeah.
and that's it.
You know what's funny? He actually really enjoys skateboarding, so I can imagine him just going out skating and having a good time. And the parents were so upfront with me telling me this, and I was like, perfect. Let's make a plan. If he doesn't enjoy any part of the game, I also got to put him in goal to see if he enjoyed that as well. I was able to try and give him multiple parts of the game
Different experiences.
where he could see what part of it he liked.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, he didn't get to not like any part of it. But the parents was like, "Hey, let's give him a little break and see if it can be, if the fire can be reinvigorated again or
Or if maybe
resparked."
he missed it.
Yeah,
That's also a sign, right?
exactly. And so my appreciation
Oh,
came.
dude, this is a red card.
No, hold on. My appreciation came from the fact that the parent was so open about it and being able to tell me, hey, this is what's going on. Let's make a plan so that we're able to best fit the needs of my son. And it's so different between X, Y, and Z player, which for me, which was so helpful to get that, especially from my first year of coaching younger kids.
And will continue to be next season if you continue within that age group. It will continue to enlighten you and engage you in ways that expand your ability to coach at that level and also older levels, because what you learn at the youngers is transferable a lot of the time to the olders. It's in principle form. It's just not vice versa, because there's so much more understanding here that you have to focus on more pinpointed details. But all of those things are actually deriving from and fundamentally gained there with the youngers. So that's why I go again. You should stay within that realm. Even I, in my 10th year of coaching 9-year-olds, am finding new challenges and growth points from having that team because of the age, not the experience.
And it's also because you every day are the type of person that wants to get something out of the day,
All I really want to do every time I show up to the field is hand a tool over that they can consistently use for the future with or without me. And every single day that I show up to a training session or a game, my major obligation, my major focus on that day is to give them a tool, some sort of tool, whether it's mental, tactical, physical, spatial understanding, any of those things. Because if then we come to the game next weekend or even practice the next week and they show that understanding, that's your
plus
job.
a victory. And
That
you
will,
added a tool in their tool belt of what they can use for the future. And then
that's the end result of the process.
imagine creating young men with these older kids. I'm not even trying to give them stuff anymore about the game. It's about how can I make you a better man.
A better man. I always say it like this: our job as youth football coaches is to share our love of the game, raise young men, and enjoy everything that we're doing while we're there. The learning process is part of that. I use the game to teach life lessons, and I use life lessons as pinpoints and highlights within the game. When you can connect those two things and you can give the greater lesson to the player, they see how football connects to life and life connects to football, and how those behaviors they can take outside of the game and become a better person. Teamwork, how to speak with one another, leadership, understanding how the team has a certain shared goal that we're all trying to accomplish and your role within that shared goal.
And your standard of yourself in that role.
Values and morals based on reactions and decisions. All of those things are life lessons that can be taught to the player through the game. And as a youth coach, one of my major functions, abilities, focuses, is to give them life lessons and tools that they can use in the future, again, with or without me. Been coaching for 10 years now. I know that I'm not going to be with these players longer than 2 or 3 years. I know that for a fact. So what do I have to do? Prepare them for their future. That's it. That's really it. And then when you start making it more complex with results and emotions based on those results, and you start to lose focus on what your actual job is when you're on the ground. From my perspective, that's one of the major dilemmas of focusing on the result and the scoreline of the game. You actually forget your place in the team, your role, your responsibility, and what you're there to do. So again, we all love to win. Everyone wants to win. But what is the process to getting to that win? Because that's actually the teaching curve. That's what you're giving to these kids. That's the life lessons. And the end result, when they're done with you, is you want them to reach out to you many years later and say, hey, I really appreciate those things you taught me. Because when you receive that message from X, Y, or Z, there is no feeling like it. The fulfillment, the purpose, the impact is so heavy in your heart in a positive manner. You realize then and there That's why I'm doing this.
That fulfills you. That's your fulfillment.
My favorite thing personally is not texts, videos, emails of a positive sentiment of your work. Is the handwritten notes I've received from players over the last decade.
Pen and paper, you can't go wrong with that.
I keep those things in a chest and I'll never let them go, because anytime I'm down and out, or the results have turned on me, or the situation has got ugly for one reason or another, that's what brings you back to why are you doing what you're doing, and that the impact is much greater than just this moment or just this result or just this season. And if you can think of it like this, the reputation that you develop as a coach is more of a life teacher, more of an impactful person in this player's life than sometimes their aunts, brothers, uncles, or even parents sometimes.
Than just a soccer coach.
It's
and with that being said, welcome
to the Pitchside Prospects,
the football,
the Youth Football Chronicles.
Hey, see, we're working on that.
Yeah,
we're working on that.
You know, anytime you put the youth in there, it gets sensitive, right? Because when you're working with kids, you have to give extra thought to everything that you're doing.
Oof.
When you're managing adults, it's a different story. You can treat them as they are. But when you're working with kids, you need to treat them with all kinds of extra respect, lessons, teachings, care.
The care above all, because these kids are in formation of who they really are. They don't even know who they are right now.
Developing that that sense of self.
Exactly.
You're part of that. I can't tell you how many times actually I've heard from a parent, can you speak to my kid? And I'm trying not to be son or daughter, you know, because it's
full. Look at you.
Yeah,
look at you, my man.
Like, I'm trying. It's hard because I've always been in men's football for 10 years, but now I'm starting to work with women's, and I'm starting to understand it's not boy or girl, it's player. And what you really want is to say that, well, you impacted this player in such a positive manner that they're going to remember you for life. And also, when the parent comes up to you and they're having household troubles with their player, with the son or daughter, they sometimes come to the coach and say, hey, can you reiterate this value or this lesson? Because they listen and hear you 10 times better than they listen and they hear me. And maybe just because of a matter of frequency of how often they're being told to listen to their parents versus how often they see their coach, and then the impact they have in that time.
Of course.
So when you hear that from a parent, it's actually one of the greatest respects. It's, can you help me teach my son or daughter this value that we feel as a family is necessary for their success as a person in the future? And it's got to be hard for a parent to speak those words to a coach.
Well, because they don't even know him. And then, like, imagine, like, how I'm thinking about it right now is where did like, I don't know, society, parents go wrong so that, like, kids can't fully trust their parents into thinking that they don't believe and want what's best for them. That's what I'm thinking about right now while you're bringing this up.
Society didn't go wrong, and it didn't. It's not like that. It's human nature to want to go out and explore the world for your own right, regardless of what your parents are teaching you or telling you. It's human nature to go learn the hard way, to go and try something that piques your interest and fail, or do something wrong and learn from the consequences, even when you're being told, that was a golazo, huh? Even when you're being told this is the right thing to do. My brain as a young kid, I was that kid, and I know my kid will be that kid times 2, was, hey, my dad told me to do this. I'm going to do this because this is my way. And that's just that natural human.
But not everyone's like that. Like, some people, yes, they start like that, but then they get reinforced like, hey, the father or the mother is here for you, and I want the best for you.
So that's why I say
and
it's
some
not
kids
a
go in line.
Issue, I don't think.
Some kids go in line, and then some kids don't.
I think it's a human nature thing. It's natural for kids to do, and it's not anything to do with society failed or succeeded. It's just, it's natural for a child to question authority. And maybe not for everybody, like you just said, but I can tell you that I was that way, and that my son or daughter will be that way, because it's in me. It'll be in them. We were just talking about that player on my boys 2014 team. He's got a fire in him, bro. Makes a heavy tackle. Ref gets on him. The sideline on the opposite side screaming at him, and he turns to him and he's like, "What's up?" Like, and then the ref makes a bad call on him, and he's arguing with the ref about his tackle. He's very, very
Is he mature for his age or no?
no, but he's very confrontational and aggressive when he feels that he's right, and he's willing to show it in the game. To the point where the father is next to me, and he's, darn, I said his name. Don't react. Don't be like that. Behave. He's screaming all those things, right? But at the end of the day, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with the player's reactions. It's just a matter of values in the family that's accepted or not. But that's a natural reaction for a player to have when he's competing in a game. And he's getting a sideline ripping on him when he's playing right back and he has nothing to hear but that. You can turn to them and be like, no problem.
Well,
man.
and then imagine
Okay.
imagine how they see and view the professionals when they do that. Those are the people that they look up to, and they see them do that. And it's like, well, why can't I do that? You know?
I love the moment in a professional game when the player scores a goal and makes the long haul celebration to the away stands and celebrates in front of the away.
That's how it should be.
I
Because-
love that.
Oh wait, no, you
So
mean
much. I mean,
not in front of
Not
their
in front of their fans, the others. Love that. I love that because it's one of those moments where it's just like, "What's up?" And
so like
then
when
cursing
Adebayor
and-
did that
and
to you.
screaming and that's tough because Adebayor played for us.
Exactly.
And so that's one of those moments where he was making a statement to us, like you passed up on something.
And you
Sorry
actually
for
enjoy
you.
that?
I do because I feel like they're deserving of that moment. I feel like they've earned it. And also the human emotion that derives from that moment, both from the players that scored the goal and the way fans or the fans against them. There's so much human emotion, unfiltered human emotion going on there. The only thing that I'm against in that moment is racism. That's gone too far. Like if you start calling that stuff out while that human emotion's gone,
But you don't think the player incites
He
it by going over with the
he
fans?
incited aggression, but the response and aggression.
No, I'm not saying you
racism.
can't have. I'm not saying you can have. You should not have aggression, but I'm saying don't do that. Don't instigate. Like, even though I like that.
Yeah,
I like
was
that.
just gonna say the
I
funny
like that.
thing is if you're playing, you're gonna be like, yeah, that's me.
No, I like that. But if you're gonna be playing with fire, then you're gonna get burned.
That's
so
true.
like, don't be complaining about it if that happens because you're instigating. That's
The
all I'm
other
saying.
part
I'm
of
not
that
saying
is-
it's right.
The other part about it is there's still game to be played. So what happens later on in that match? Are you gonna pay the price for that arrogance? It's very powerful.
That's the scary part. Whenever you play like Jose, it's just like it can come back and bite you. But majority of the time, people get in their heads too much. And then now that we're talking about emotions, how about we talking about the emotions that happened to this weekend on our match of the week? Tottenham versus Liverpool.
Which we have on right now. And a lot of questionable decisions in this game that incited a lot of crazy emotions from arguably one side, right? And justified as well. Tottenham came to do what they came to do. They played the game, they focused on what they can control, and they got out of there with 3 points. But the story is still factual. There was an incorrect call made, releasing statements of referee committees saying we made that mistake, and releasing statements of the club that was the mistake was pressed against of their dissatisfaction with the handling of this situation. The emotions that come from that were really, really ugly. But we got to talk about that referee problem because I don't see it as a problem. It's a situation. For 25 years, referees have been operating on human error. For the last 5 to 6 years,
it's like you were talking about human nature. It's human nature not to be perfect. We all make mistakes.
Coaches, refs, players, fans.
What I have been arguing is the fact that we can't use this man-made technology to minimize the human error.
But that's exactly what we've gone to try to do. And now that we have VAR, we're trying to minimize human error by having this check system in place.
which did not happen.
But 99.5% of the time, it does.
Yeah.
And so,
Which is why I'm a fan of VAR. I like VAR.
Right.
I believe that VAR it should be in place in this game to make it more fair for everyone.
it just got you wrong this week.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it played out. And then the emotions that come from that, they're pretty harsh because think about it like this. The refs that were in question are no longer in Premier League games for the rest of the season. Now in England, that's not a problem. They got refs all over the place. In America, though, that's a serious problem because we have a referee shortage, and the way that we treat our referees in this country is borderline disgusting.
Who?
Everybody.
Yep.
Everybody. From players to fans to coaches. Referees take the worst of the experience at any match. In America, it's almost gotten to the point where we don't even have enough refs for the games that are being played simply because of the way that we're treating them. To the point where even 10 years into my coaching career, I've gone and started my referee course license. Because I, as a coach, want to have a better understanding of the way that they're supposed to and want to think. Also, I reffed a lot of games at the Barcelona Residency Academy just for some extra cash here and there. And I found the experience to be very engaging. Because you will always have a hater.
No
You will
mames.
never-
You're on. You don't have a teammate. You are solo, alone.
Everyone there hates you.
Yeah. No team.
You cannot get out of there liked. Never. And so the
Well,
challenge,
except by the coach that won. That's me.
it's bias, which is bias. So does it exist? It's like I feel one of the greatest things we could do for this country is change the way that we interact and engage and speak to our refs. Now, I am part of this problem. I get very passionate when a mistake is made through human error, and I explain very out loud, outright, how I feel about the decision that was made and why.
You know
Is that right of me?
You know which
No.
referees? Why not? Because you're saying what you saw in the game. It's not wrong. It's not right. What I appreciate though from refs and what I absolutely hate from some other refs is the fact that some of them will either own up and tell you the reason why, or some of them will just shut up.
I do not like that.
Whoever shuts up is I feel like being shielded by their decision and by their authority that, oh, you can't talk to me like this and I won't talk back to you. So this is how it's going to be.
I'll say it in a coaching sense. Like if a player asks you what you're supposed to do, what am I supposed to do in that situation, and you don't have the answer to give to them, are you a coach? And the same goes for the ref. If you ask the question and pose the question of why this decision was being made and they can't answer you, are you doing the job? So that's the question that comes into my mind. But I feel like more times than not, I give them respect, but there are those moments where I give them that disrespect. And I think that that's going on everywhere at every game, and people are just not signing up to be refs anymore because they don't want to take the hate. And
no, they don't understand either. Once they get the hate, then boom.
Does it have to be that way? Absolutely not.
Talking about the hate, it's so funny.
Emotions.
Because guess what?
It's the emotions that do that to us.
Even at a youth girls game that the girls are 6 and 7 years old, you'll be seeing the parents, the coach go crazy to this ref. It is poor teenager that hasn't even graduated high school.
That's right.
And it's like, why are we berating them for something that, in the grand scheme of it all, is it really that important?
Bigger picture, you want to know why a teenager's ref in that game? Because we already outed all the other refs that have experience through our emotions and treated them like shit, for lack of a better term. Excuse my language. That's the reason that 14-year-old is in charge of that 8-year-old girls game. Not because, well, it's a low-level game in a young age, so we've got to put a low-level ref and experienced one there. No. Because we don't have experienced refs anymore because we're pushing them out of the game with our emotions, our reactions, and our words.
There's some times where refs have to do multiple games back to back to back.
Dude, 6 in a row sometimes. You imagine, I was talking about this with my current club owner. How do you, as a coach, you coach 3 games in a row at the top flight, whatever it is, ECNL, And this game, there was a terrible call in the first game. How do you compartmentalize all the emotions within that first game? It ends, you start the next one without any of those residual emotions left over. And the same is true for the ref who's sitting there refing the next game as well. So the best case scenario would be for you to compartmentalize everything that was going on in the last game to move on to the next. But is that human nature? Absolutely
You
not.
can't.
I've
It's very
never
difficult
seen
to.
I can't say never, but it's very rare to see a coach experienced enough to be able to coach 3 games back to back with an entirely new mental entity or energy about them at the start of each game. That is one of the hardest things to do and shows an incredible maturity as a coach when it can be done.
No, and especially when you have to take care of the next team that's playing warm up.
That's right.
Imagine if you have to be focused on a game, focused on 11 players, 7 players on the bench, and then have to be spectating and watching over 18 new players that are coming from an environment that you can't control, trying to bring them into an environment where you want to best prepare them for what they have in front of them.
And that's what it is. It's proper preparation. So it's a matter of how are they speaking? How are they warming up? Are they treating it with care? Are they dialed in? And how are you supposed to manage all that and monitor all that while you actually have an entire match going on? Well, in America, that happens all the time. If you're coaching, you're going to have multiple teams and you're going to have back-to-backs. And the hardest part is sometimes they're not even on the same field. In the lower regional levels, 99% of the time, they're not going to be. So not only are you jumping, coaching this game, jumping to that field, warming this team up, starting the next one, when you are on the same field, you have to be coaching this game with the team warming up over here, completely engaged with all the decisions, emotions, and actions here, while monitoring and engaging the preparation.
Cool. And that monitoring, especially for like, I can't speak for girls, but for boys, it is so hard to actually get them dialed in because they don't see each other. They want to catch up on whatever, little jokes, da 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 da.
It's the same for girls. I'm starting to recognize and realize. Wait, they haven't seen each other. They're coming together and they have a lot to, I'm not going to say gossip about, but speak about. And the same for boys. They have a lot to gossip or speak about. And right now, they need a leader to focus their mind. But you're, as their leader, focused
somewhere else.
And so how? The way we solved it was both of us are there. You go there, I'll go here, and we'll manage that.
That is
5-6
I
minutes.
feel like that is the best way to get the maximum out of the both, because if not, then you're just taken away from one or the other. There is no way to be fully focused on both. It is impossible.
So this, we go back to like the game of the week where the referee was the main talking point, right? And how he made his decisions and how the emotions then came from those decisions. And we can attach that to youth football in America and see the same thing happening week in and week out. Like what you experienced on your field this week, where you got on the lucky end or the good end of the ref's emotions. Or like my game last weekend where I got on the wrong end of it and got a yellow card. And now I have to be very wise about all my actions and words because this guy's attention and focus is against me at the moment. I created that bias with the words that I said to him earlier in the match. They're human. They are officials officiating a match with the laws of the game, but they're human beings. And the way that you treat a human being is the way that you get treated back. That's a golden rule.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah.
So
even back in the times of Jesus, that was the rule.
so don't think that just because they wear that badge that they're going to uphold this utmost
sacred rule
of this is my job as an official. No, they're human.
They come out here.
That bar starts to drop as you start to disrespect them.
And then you know what's funny is that some of them, they do it for the money. And then because of that,
most of them.
And then because of that, how much are they really like invested into it?
So that's something I had a conversation with the ref team at the ECNL field last night. 2 of the guys were very clearly not there. There, but not there. The one guy that was, you feel a different energy about him. He has explanations for all the decisions he made. His chest is up, his head's up, and he is running to each position to make sure he has a good sight of it. Where the other 2 are just, they're there to collect the check and get a good money on a good weekend of repping 12 games. But they're not actually there
No,
for the game.
they're going through the motions,
They're
man.
there for themselves. And there's a big difference when you feel the ref show up who's there for the game and to be that official. He's like, I take pride in this work and I'll show that in my actions. The vice versa is true too. You could see it right away on somebody. Sometimes it's not their fault. Like we said earlier, sometimes it's the 6th game they had on the day.
Poof, and they're just
You're human, bro.
the
You've been
drain. The brain gets
the sun's
the brain
hitting
gets
you.
so
You
drained.
get 5 to 10 minutes between each game to get some water, get a little snack, and now you got to rewire your brain to a reset to start the next one. And here's again, we'll go back to the ref shortage. They wouldn't be doing 6 games in a row if we weren't treating these refs with such disrespect and they had more people being a part of it. They'd trade out after 3, and then a new set of 3 comes in, and then you have a better system in place, which was happening for a while and still happens from time to time.
If you're lucky.
But we're headed the negative direction. We're losing them. We're not gaining them. We're not going to get more of those trade outs. We're going to get less as we continue to rip these people apart for human nature, to make a mistake like we all do. So I make a mistake in the way that I treat them in my passionate moment, and I try my very best at the end of every game to, if I did step out of line, to apologize to that ref and to explain to him that it's the passion of the moment in the game and that I love this and that's where it comes from. And a lot of the time the respect is given right back. Like, dude, I get that. Like, all good. Sometimes the emotion's still there and they're like, I want nothing to do with you. The game's over. I don't have to speak to you anymore. That's fair. You earned that response from your own demeanor, from your own words. You earned that. So deal with it. It's kind of what it is. But in the long run, can you change the way that you interact with them so you can see it as a big picture and recognize, in order to help youth football in America, we have to treat these people with more respect. We have to treat these people better. If we are to get better officials, more clean-headed people where we trade them out in between so they're ready to go, they have energy, that's never going to happen if we keep going the way we're headed with them. It's getting uglier and uglier with each passing year. In America in particular, that's just the case, which has led me to go get my license, which is crazy to think about. I'm a coach. I'm a director. We will not have any time on the weekend to go ref a game. But I'm doing it from my understanding of the way that they think so that my reactions in those moments get curved a little bit towards treating them with more respect.
Because you already know what's going on in their head.
And I've seen it for 10 years, dude. And it's going the wrong way. We're not, in 10 years from now, going to be in a position to have our best football happening if we continue to do that, because the officials are just important as the coaches and they're just important as the players. That game doesn't happen without them there. The same way the game doesn't happen without us there or them there. We all have to be there to do our role in order for this game to take place.
I think the game can happen without us. I'd like to hope that the game can happen without us.
When I say us, I mean you and your team as a whole.
Okay, yeah.
Not just the coach that's in place. I mean, they're a whole party, they're a whole party, they're a party. And all 3 of those parties must be in attendance in order for this game to take place. And if we don't treat them with more respect, we're going to lose this party. We're going to only have 1 center refs, or we're going to move to a 2 center ref system in club, because there just aren't 3 for every game anymore. That's already started to happen. We saw that in my regional leagues last season. 9 times out of 10, we had 2 when we were supposed to have 3. We're paying less money because only 2 showed up. But the real problem is we have less eyes officiating the match and more things are missed, and our emotions get heightened, and the vicious negative cycle repeats. That is the greatest issue, from the ref shortage to the emotional control on how we speak to the refs, and also all the way from youth football to the top level football, where we saw it happen at Liverpool and Tottenham this weekend. It's a real dilemma across all boards. So that's where we go back to this and we say, okay, what can we do to change this? Be more conscientious when you're on the sideline of how you're going to react to each moment that the referee or the official has to make a hard decision.
Are you going to control your emotions? Are you going to control what you can control?
9 times out of 10, yes. The 10th time,
you're gonna let the game control.
It gets me.
Whatever you got.
It does get me sometimes, and I can admit that.
Everyone.
And you see it from Pep, you see it from Klopp, you see it from Arteta. We're not perfect. nor are they. And when we can all understand that this human error and emotion is built within the game, we'll be able to be more patient with all of the decisions that have to be made. As a leader, I posted something on my personal account about the decisions you have to make as a leader. And one of the things is you have to make negative decisions upon people you care about. Now, I'm not doing that to hurt the person. I'm doing it for the betterment of the whole. They're doing the same thing. So how can we treat them with such disrespect when we know how it feels when you have to be that person and be disrespected? It's just a lack of conscientious awareness. In the moment where you get passionate, you lose the sense and you speak, or you rip, or you leave your technical box, or you do something against the laws of the game. But if we were all at our greatest point, we'd handle that moment with more awareness.
All right, talking about technical boxes now. You have anything that highlighted of your weekend? You have any special weekend recap you want to talk about from your teams?
From
what you experienced?
From my teams, I think this weekend was a little bit rough for us. The previous weekend, we had an excellent weekend, a win and a tie, and we were
Well, too bad we didn't talk about that last
goals.
week.
Yeah, we scored 9 goals. But this week, we had fall break, so we had 3 players out of town. My goalkeeper has a broken arm, and 2 of the players, we play 7v7s, of the 7 players I had at the game were sick, playing against the second place team.
What positions were those couple players?
So we talk about this is the spine, right? My goalkeeper has a broken arm. One of the players that was out of town was my center back. The other player that was out of town was my center mid. And these are starting players at a 7
players that play
level.
most of the game.
So
I
their
can imagine,
impact is incredible. We call that the spine, right? We call that the goalkeeper, center back, center mid, striker, that spine. Generally speaking, when you're playing in the middle of the park, you have a greater impact on the whole. And those players are people that are more consistent a lot of the time than risky, or inconsistent is the best way to say it. You can trust them in most situations. Now, not to take anything away from the players that I did have, because now it's their opportunity to grow and develop in a really hard, challenging experience. Because not only did we have those players who are part of our spine out of town, but 2 of the guys on the field were sick with no subs on the side against the second place team in our league. You talk about going into a game with disadvantages. We had it this weekend. And the way that you have to handle games like this is with a more composed and awareness of the entire situation. So when the game starts to turn on you, like it did, we lost, I think, 8-1, 8-2, 9-2 maybe. Could have been more. What do you start focusing on? How can you turn this negative experience into a growth experience? Because realistically, when we're facing the greatest challenges is when we can grow the most. So what we did was we broke the game down into quarters. We said this quarter we were better than that quarter, this quarter we were worse than that quarter, and this is why. And we looked at how they were breaking us down and how we could adjust to make better decisions to stop that play the next time. Also, when we're in possession, what decisions we made that led to counter goals. At the end of the day, I would say the 7 players I had on that ground learned more in that game than we did the previous 3 or 4 in the league, because they were in it, never coming out of it, and facing this overwhelming challenge the whole time.
No, for 60 minutes, imagine.
With the game, the scoreline's gone. But my players and my team know the score doesn't matter, how we play does. And when we have mistakes, it's the perfect time to teach and learn. And so here's a moment in the game where we're having that happen every moment. And how you respond as the coach, how I respond as a coach, is going to dictate the feeling of getting out of there as a success or a failure. So if I can break the game down into developmental terms and situations and teach the individuals and collective, well, the next moment, and when you drive as the center back and beat your striker, you cannot commit to taking on the next one because your fullbacks are so wide that if you lose this ball, they're right into your gut. My center back learned in this.
And they actually understand that?
My second center back learned that to a T through this game. Because in the first half, he did it twice. And we talked about this last week that can't happen. And then his question was then, when I beat my first man, where do I look? And that was the greatest question you could receive in the moment, because now he's starting to break it down in his brain as a 9-year-old. Okay, but I can beat that player, coach. When I'm there, then what? And my answer is, you cannot commit to taking on the next one. You have to play in the areas that are less condensed. So then the question next that I follow up with is, if you've dribbled into the middle, the dribbling action does what to your opponents? And the kid looks at me and goes, oh, it brings them to me. They come to me. So that's right. They attract. And if the ball's in the center of the field, it's likely that the entire opponents are more condensed where? In the center, coach. Though I'm going to be kind of more worried about the middle because that's where I am with the ball. So if that's your answer, where are we to look next? Oh, the wide spaces. There's your answer. So now you know, anytime you could dribble past your first opponent, striker versus center back, and you're ended up in the middle pocket, the center mid's driven a little bit forward, you're not going to try to split the gap centrally, because if he picks it out, intercepts it, and attacks, there's this massive hole that needs to be filled.
It's over.
It's done. But if you take on that first opponent, you play it wide, you're still in position to handle any transitions. Your player, you've condensed the opponents into an area, and then you've played out of that area, giving your teammates the advantage of space.
And time.
And so here you are, the 9-year-old, second half, doing just that. Boom. Boom. And now this third quarter, because we broke it in that way, we're not conceding 3 or 4 goals. We're actually scored one. And we're breaking the game into their half, and things are changing.
Oh, so when you're talking about quarters, you're not talking about the quarters on the field. You're talking about quarters of like time.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm not talking about A, B, C, D. I'm talking about we broke the game into 15, 15, 15, 15.
You're playing American football now.
Well,
you were in the third quarter, and you look good there. And
this is a coaching trick to compartmentalize the disastrous games, right? Because you could break the game into quarters, and you can tell the players, this quarter, we really struggled at these things. Now we're going in this quarter, it's 0-0. Let's try to improve on those things we didn't. This quarter, okay, a lot like this one or better in these situations. Now, in this third quarter, we're going to have to focus on this. It's a trick that I only use when the game has gotten out of hand scoreline, and your emotional state of your players is the only thing that you really have to manage in that moment. Because if they lose their emotional state, the landslide is heavy.
You want to know what I heard? It was something that really upset me this weekend when I was, not with one of my teams, with another team. They were going to play against the team that they had already played against. And before the game, when we're warming up, you can see these guys are just like, they're uneasy. And I'm like, what's going on? What's the problem? Coach, these guys, they go in hard. Coach, they're so good. They're fast. Their tackles are hard. I'm like, dude, why are you gonna make these guys already be on a pedestal and like be above you guys when the game hasn't even started yet? The first whistle hasn't even blown.
You've admitted defeat before you've begun. That's right.
I asked them, "Are you guys scared?" And they were like, "Yeah." And from there, I was like, "Wow!" Like for these young kids to already be scared of kids that are their age.
You're starting off the wrong foot. And so I always tell my players this, and I heard this last weekend. We scored 9 goals, had 2 conceded. Played against TFA. Great individual team. 2 players, way better than the rest of mine. And as we're warming up, I hear my players, Coach, they look really good. They look really good. And my response to my team was, what are you looking over there for? We're preparing to have a good game right now, and that has nothing to do with what's on that side of the field right now. If we play well, we'll win the game. We went on to win the game 5-2. We man-marked 2 of their best players, and when we got possession of the ball, we played together. That was the end result of us winning. But anytime my team starts to focus on the opponents, I snuff it out because we have no place worried about the opponents.
No, you already have so much to worry about of what you can do that why are you like putting any brain space to what they can do?
And to go back to style of play, I'm not a tactical periodization coach. I'm not going to change the chess game to my opponent. We have a way. This is our way.
You know what I'm starting to learn
So we teach this way.
when you're talking about this and just thinking about the field conditions that we play on. We don't play on flat fields all the time. And I'm thinking about
Oh,
it.
no.
Is possession the best form of play when not playing on a flat surface? You're already putting yourself at a disadvantage by playing like that. Why would you play to the field's weakness?
Because I have a style that I'm committed to. And the environment doesn't change that. Because at the next level, you won't be dealing with that environmental disadvantage or advantage based on the way that you play. I'm a positional possession coach. When we play at parks like that with potholes, uneven ground, I'm not going to then tell my players when you make that pass, it's got to be up in the air and through the gap vertically. I'm going to say you still have to play it on the ground. And when the moment happens that the ground intervenes with the action, I make sure my players know you did great. You did great.
Well, that's the only thing you can do, because then you keep motivating them. But why?
And we stick
but
to our
why?
style.
But then why?
Because we stick to our style. Because we don't change based on the environment. We don't change based on the opponent. As a coach and in my teams, we will always play this way no matter what the circumstances. When we can be that way, then I can focus their brains off of the opponents and completely on what we're trying to do. It's a help. It's a tool in that regard. Then the moment does occur a lot in youth football where the ground or the situation, the
Well, it's because
environment.
we don't play on quality. So like how I've been thinking about it is like, why would I make my team feel the pressure, of trying to pass it to feet with each other when we don't know if the pass is going to go the way that it's going to be, that way that we intended it.
And it's a matter of you, how you coach, how you want your team to play, and the way that you change based on your opponents and your environment. I don't do any of that.
And so how I've been
I'll
thinking
never
about
do
it.
any of that.
How I've been thinking about it is, look, why are we going to play when it's such a bad space to play? How about we play through them and use our other strengths to our advantage?
My answer is simple. I want my players to understand this is the way we play, regardless of the situations against us. If you choose to play any other way, you're not learning the style of play that I want my team to play. And next season, let's say we move to a turf field. Now they're already going to be well versed in all the passes, the circulations, the sequences that should happen in third man actions in certain places, because we practice that over and over again, irregardless of the situation of the environment or the opponents. So my answer becomes, the reason I don't play to my environment and my opponents is because I'm teaching this style of football and the way that ball moves, not necessarily how it moves, because that could be affected by the ground. It could be affected by the space. Because even in our spaces in youth football, you're never going to go and play at the same size pitch. They're either less wide.
I love that.
They're less long.
I love that,
they're
because
super long.
that's another thing
it's a
you adjust
constantly
to.
changing thing. But for us, the only adjustment for my style of play is when we have possession of the ball, use all of it. Use all of it. Now, in a tight space, we have to say the same. Use all of it. But the problem with that is the game has to speed up now, because simply the space has changed. It's the only problem. If the ground is bad and the space is small, my style is at a disadvantage. Does that mean I change from it? Absolutely not, because positional possession football is as such. We play this way, we learn the sequences, we learn the way the ball should move and in what angles and in what moments. And the way that happens, how that happens, based on the circumstances we can't control, does not matter. Because tomorrow, what you would have gained is a better understanding of the sequences and how to play in that moment to get out. Then we go see a good field tomorrow, and wow, they already know how to break that team down in that area because we were practicing it yesterday, regardless about how the ball rolled. And that's why my answer is kind of simple, because it breaks down into style again, right? And our style is we do this.
So I'll give you a little weird thing that I noticed this weekend. An 09 team. 09 team was playing, which is a bunch of 14-year-olds. They're playing on a really small field width-wise and length-wise, which is not an 11-by-11 size field, and they were playing in the morning on turf. So you know how the morning dew gets the turf nice and slick, hard to get the ball to be moving. So I just told him, hey, field big or small? Small, right? So we have to be able to know where we want to play the ball to the best of our advantage for our teammates to get the ball.
Now, I'm not going to take that away from you, because imagine when we went last season, I think we went down into the Chula Vista area, and one of the teams we were playing in that area, their field was particularly tiny. And we were playing with 16-year-old national level boys. So our positional possession wasn't working in zone A, B, or C, but the spaces were so condensed that our zone D was wide open. So what did we do to create the space in order to start playing? We had to play 1, 2, bang into the open space, a little more vertical. But once we applied and once we got into that space and we applied our style of play, now we can start to break the spaces down, because we don't just have the zone D space that was open when we got there. As all the players move into zone D, what opens up?
Everything else.
C, B, A.
And
So
even
now
breaking it down to
we
like,
got to be more vertical.
hey guys, what would be the best way for us to get the ball into that final space? Is it giving it straight to like where the goalie is? No, we're going to use all of the space of the field, hitting it to where the corner flag is, because literally by math, it is the furthest distance the ball can travel without the ball going out of bounds, especially on that skiddy turf.
So for me, it's just a matter of how we do it, because I'm not going to play my center back and have him ping the corner. We're going to play through the intermediate, and we're going to have to play in 1s and 2s, because that's what I demand from my teams. So instead of center back, left winger, we're probably going to go center back, right back, 6, left winger. And that's what, to me, shows an understanding of how to bring them in, then exploit.
So you know, it's kind of crazy, because we didn't have to bring them in. It was the first time in youth football that I had seen a coach deliberately play an extremely high line. And when I mean extremely high line, we were at, let's say, the 30-yard line or 35-yard line. He's at the half, and we're playing there. And it's like...
In your half or his?
In our half.
Yeah.
And they're pushed up. Their defensive line was at the 50. And I'm thinking to myself, what?
Why expend all that space behind you?
But the reason why is because that space is so small.
Yeah.
So then theoretically the goalie should have been able to step up higher, but he didn't. He didn't do that either.
We were blessed with a keeper last season that did that so well.
Talking about, remember how we're talking about
amazing at that.
The first episode.
Yeah.
Going to what we believe in, what we
as keepers,
love to have in goalkeepers.
He did that extremely well. He knew where to be in between the spaces, so that big space was open, he could be first to the ball. He was good with his feet, so either he made a strong tackle or he picked it up, he made a pass, and we recreate our shape. If your keeper's wise enough to be doing that, you can give that space away.
But the problem was that they didn't do that, and the other team, and so our goals just came from little play, sneak it through, and then you have 40 yards to run the goal alone.
Exploiting the vacant space. It's 100% a tactical move, plan, based on what you're seeing on the day and the environmental differences and challenges on the day. For us, though, and people they get tired of it in situations like that on a small field where I, as the coach, am like, build out, build out, build out, build out. You have to do it. You don't have a choice. People look at me like, why? The advantage is there. My message is because you learn more for me in future games by going through the intermediates to find that space than you do just being so direct. Because as a team, that's how I would like my teams to play and how I enjoy watching my teams play. So I'm teaching them, even under this harder challenges and circumstances, it can be done, but this is how it has to be done in this situation based upon the space. Context is everything. Space and variance. Space is a variant. It varies from game to game. So your context doesn't change while we're playing. Not my style, just the variance. So now I can go Whereas in a bigger field, it might be a full swing, 6, over to the winger, back into the 10, back across. Why? Because we had the space in zone A, B, and C. But in a game where it's small, we don't. So it's probably going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, or even less, straight to right back, straight to 6, into the pocket. But the means on how we're attacking that space can't change in positional possession. We have to attract to exploit. We can't just exploit. That's just a matter of principle for me as a coach to my teams.
So now that we're talking about all these different variables, how about we go to our Q&A section?
I love the questions we got so far.
And we talk about some of the different variables that make the difference between our game, what we are in, experience right now, and what the professional league is. So, question from at Vito X and Grand. We love your questions, Vito.
Thank you, Vito. Appreciate you.
What do you think is a major difference in the top professional leagues? And I want to answer this question first because it was 6 months ago or so, the first time that I had traveled to Europe and experienced what it's like seeing the different levels of how the game is interpreted between Americans and Europeans that live and breathe and die for
Not
this
to
game.
say that there's not Americans that do or don't. It's just there's a more concentrated population there that do.
And so I was fortunate enough to go to some soccer games while over there and be able to see these professionals from top teams play. And to make this answer very basic, the one thing that I saw that was different between the professionals playing on that field and the kids that I see and play and coach with is their relationship with the ball versus the players that I know relationship with the ball. Their relationship with the ball is if it's part of their body. They know how to manipulate that ball in most, if not all circumstances, however context the ball is coming in, whether it's in the air, on the ground, bouncing at different speeds. That, for me, is the one thing that makes a major difference between X and Y.
I have that. I can make the ball do whatever I want. But a lot of the time, if not most of the time, I can make the ball do what I want.
So what's that extra for you?
I spent so much time with it. I spent so much time with the ball. It was an extension of self.
So then why did you not make it pro then? What is the other thing? Do you think that that pros have that, even if some people that have that extension of the ball of their body,
we have
doesn't let
another
them go pro?
question on the list here that actually also applies to that. And for me, it was the balance of the consistency and social, school, and football. I didn't have the self-discipline to focus at the time of my career where that was a real opportunity on the things that mattered to get me to that stage.
So then it's people that want it more, that let the distractions go away and focus on what they actually want to do.
100%. I believe it might not have, it was Muhammad Ali. They asked him, what's the hardest part about being the champ? He said, dodging the nightclubs, getting to bed by 9, staying in my home, staying away from the devils. That was his answer.
So now that we talk about that,
the hardest thing, he said, the hardest thing. Yeah, because consistency is actually the hardest thing. In order to be consistent, that means every single day, no matter how you're feeling, you choose these, not that. And like the difference, I think, between professionals and professionals in other leagues versus where we are here is people here seem to care more about other things besides just that football. And over there, there's a more high concentration of people that is the center of their universe. It is everything to them. And over the course of 20 years, that develops the consistency and the ability to play at that high level. But again, we'll go to that other question.
Let's bring it up. First of all, thank you, Vito, for the question.
I still want to touch on it a little bit.
At Kamishon Jacob asks, some advice on how to balance football, social life, and school.
This is a great question. I'm sure it's something.
Excellent
I'm
question.
sure it's something, Jacob, you are going to have to face, not just in high school, in college.
It's something that we all face. You and I are
Now,
face this.
a life lesson, right?
Everyone does.
So it's about prioritizing. What matters to you most? And I'll be honest with you, when I was in college, there were three, right? It's the social, it's the soccer, it's the school, it's the triple S. And
triple S.
and my priorities were misset. I'll tell you right now, I was focused on soccer number one, social number two, schooling number three. Is it any secret why I had to drop out on after my third year and didn't get to complete my fourth? It isn't. Because if you don't focus and prioritize school over social, you will not make it. Up until a certain point, sport does have to be that number one priority. If you want to make it pro, and my father hated me for this, is that I prioritized soccer over anything of the three. It was my number one. I woke up, I lived it, I breathed it. It kept me living and breathing, lighting the fire each day. In my opinion, that's what you need to become the professional. But it has to be consistent. And if your second priority isn't proper, it'll all fold underneath you, which happened to me because I had the opportunities. But because my second priority was social, was the girls, was going out, was meeting people, I lost the opportunity to even be in an experience to prove to that organization that I could play football at that level because my current organization dropped me because I didn't meet the standard of what was expected to me in school. So it's a bottom line is priorities that are set to their football. We can combine those two questions into one answer. It's legitimately, how do you prioritize the importance of the game? And then in order to be consistent in that prioritization, how is your second priority set? Now, am I telling you to take away your social life? Absolutely not. The most important thing for my players is for them to be happy in their personal lives in order to succeed in football. So it's not like social doesn't have a place in this conversation. It does. But the bottom line is if your girl or your boy like to go out and like to be social, they like to go and party, they go to bars, whatever it is, you might be with the wrong person to support your priorities. They're going to start pulling you in the wrong direction for your path, if your path is to become a pro. So he says, if we can be giving these people that social life, have a supportive spouse or partner who knows that their priorities are this and supports them in that, you can prioritize that social life because they're going to help you build upon these things.
They supplement it. They don't take away.
They don't take away. They build. But the second that social life, friends, loved ones, enters an entity that curves your priority, now you're on a dangerous path. And I'll say this very blatantly. Be very particular about the people you put in your life there. Because the people you put in your life and you're surrounded with have the greatest impact on who you're going to be and what you will become. We all know that to be true. But then when you're a young kid, teenager in college, and you see this exciting person that's very vibrant and full of life and doing all these things outside of what your main goal is, you get attracted to that and it starts to pull you away from your own priorities. You can lose everything you built in no time when you start to lose your sense of priority. And I speak about that personally from a personal experience where I lost everything because I misrepresented my priorities.
And I'll have a little conciser answer to that question.
About that.
To that question, and this is even from what I have. This is from what I have learned from other people, not from, and taking from my own personal experience. But there was someone that Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant hired to make sure that they would make it to their greatness. His name is Tim Grover. If you get a chance, look him up. He's made a couple books.
It's a great mentor leader.
Tim Grover was the mentor or the trainer of, you could say, some of the greatest in basketball history.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go as far to say the greatest.
he was asked, and he has made 2 books, Relentless and Winning. Great books. Pick them up if you get a chance and read. I learn from people that have what I want. That is something that I have been trying to live by for the past 3 years now. That's how I got to know him. He states, and this is very, very powerful because, first of all, you got to know where you want to get to. Kobe and Jordan knew where they wanted to get to, the top. To get to the top, you got to outwork everyone else that's trying to get there.
Not the 1%, the 0.01%.
So when you ask about the balance between all of these things, excuse my language, it depends where you want to get to. If you want to get to the top, there's no balance at the top. You're either there and you're doing the work to be there, or you ain't there.
We had that conversation in Spain on the way to church on Easter Sunday with your little brother. How do the pros get there? What is it that they do differently? We had one simple answer: consistency. But what does that really mean? It means what we're talking about now, prioritizing the most important things day in and day out through all of the walks of life, the stages that you
and
enter
it depends
exit.
what you want, because sometimes people want to have a family and they have to prioritize that. Sometimes people want to get a better place in their job, so they have to prioritize that. It's about what do you want.
Yeah, and your priorities will shift and change 100%. As you grow.
You can.
It's the people that leaves that one at the center of their life that end up being the 0.01%. And that's truly what it takes to be able to separate yourself from the pack. It's not a matter of great games here or there. It's a matter of great consistency in your work for 15, 20 years straight. When you can show that, I guarantee you can go overseas and find a club that would be happy to take you on because you're a professional. And being a professional in consistency is one of the hardest things to do. That's why only the 0.01% make it. So whenever we're talking about that, your triple S's, your school, your social, your soccer, you have to be sure about where are your priorities. And then when you think about your social, think about the people you're surrounding yourself with, because they'll have an amazing or incredible impact on who you're going to become, for better or for worse. Girlfriends, siblings, spouses, parents, friends. All of those people have a grand impact on who you'll become. And so you have to be particular about who you let in and who you're listening to based upon what you're trying to accomplish, because it's your life, it's the things you want to do, and nobody else is going to do it for you.
Nada.
It's on you.
You either earn it
or you don't,
or you kick rocks,
or you can earn it and lose it, and that hurts even more.
A great question, Jacob. I appreciate that question a lot. And I think we're going to go to the final question of the day, coming from at B8YAN_. What's up, Brian? Hope you're doing well. Wish the best for you. Brian asks, what is the best way to gain self-confidence?
Wow. What an excellent question. One of my favorites.
You want me to start with a couple quotes?
No, I'll start this one.
Go ahead.
So again, confidence, it isn't something you build up by becoming more successful in each of your moments. No. Confidence is something you build by changing your relationship to failure and understanding the more that you try, the more that you learn, the better you'll get at that situation or handling that moment. So when you're thinking about being confident, it has nothing to do with your recent stints of how you played or when. Like we look at Richarlison, right? Had a horrible couple months. Comes out with a statement in the public, says, I'm going back to England to work on my mind.
That
to work
is
on my mind.
To say that as a professional,
it's here,
and you got to have some humility.
Yeah, it's
not. You have to have some humility to be like, I need to work on myself.
So when then you start to think about in your head, well, why am I so pressured to be so great in this moment? Or why do I feel like I have to be perfect? Or why do I feel like I'm not competing at the level that I should? Is the fear of failure getting in the way of your ability to try. And when you can change your relationship to that fear and turn it into an excitement, a want, something that you want to experience more and more and more to learn from, now your willingness to try goes through the roof. Your second thoughts or guesses of your own decisions disappear. You're willing to just go. And there's something we go ahead.
I'll supplement with that. Changing the word from fear, same thing as doubt. When you doubt yourself, you're already putting that negative thought in your head, and most likely that's what's going to come out. One of the greatest goal scorers in all of football, Gerd Mueller, once said, "Doubt is the enemy of the goal scorer. Practice is the enemy of doubt."
Wayne Gretzky, you miss all the shots you don't take.
So imagine, let's say for Brian, in Brian's situation, he's a striker. Imagine when you get a penalty and you put that ball on the nice little penalty spot inside the box. You already know where you're going to go. You already know where you're going to go because you have already experienced this action 1,000 times. And each 1,000th time, each one of those 1,000 times, you put it exactly where you want it, side netting. So you already know. You can even tell the goalie where you're going to put that ball, and he probably still won't get it because you have built that confidence. You have destroyed the doubt of where you're going to put it, and then it just comes down to your muscle memory. Are you going to believe in yourself that you did it 1,000 times and now there's 1,001 time? Are you going to believe it? You can do it the same way you did it?
Or are you going to let to that repetition thing?
Are you going to let that fear?
Yeah. Well, if you're fearful, are you going to be repetitive and trying over and over again? No, you're not. If you're confident to try over and over again, the repetition takes place and your understanding grows and you get better in each situation. You stop fearing or doubting, and your willingness to try and fail goes through the roof. And now the more actions you're taking are progressive actions. Now, I'm not going to say just by doing that, all of a sudden you're going to start scoring goals like crazy, but you're really going to start looking like somebody who's more threatening because you're willing to try and you're not worried about failing.
And you don't care about what anybody thinks because you, in your own mind, thought this was the best action. I didn't get it off. Next one.
You talk about confidence. You must know that it comes from within. It doesn't come from anyone.
No one's gonna. If someone is trying to give you confidence, then do you really have confidence?
No, it's actually a sign that you don't.
To tie this question up, quote from your man, Johan says, "Fear is eliminated when a player is confident in their practice. Did they prepare well? The more a player is prepared, the more they will be comfortable and look forward to each challenge." Imagine if you didn't come study to the test, and you see that first question, you're like, "Oh no, this is gonna be a long day." You gotta prepare properly.
I think about it like when I was in college, and I was talking about one of my weaknesses was that left-footed cross thing. We talked about it in the second podcast. Do you know what I did on my own? I went out to that practice field and I repeated that action multiple times. That's not where it ends, though. I went into the games and I repeated to try to make that action happen over and over and over again. You think all of a sudden after 1 or 2 trainings on my own and then 1 or 2 games, I was whipping in crosses my left foot?
No, not even on the first one and the second one.
No chance.
And the third.
But I wasn't diminished or doubtful or fearful of those failures because I knew what I was doing was learning the success.
And then let's even think about it. Once you do get that first option of, oh, he knows how to cross with his left foot, so we got to cut that off. Now the defender knows got to cut that off. But now you go, cut him back, and he's sending for a hot dog. And now you got it on your preferred foot, and now you're able to manipulate it even better.
I scored more goals in college because of just what you said than I did in high school or my club career. I wasn't the best goal scorer then, but in college, all of a sudden, I started creating goal-scoring opportunities after I developed that left-footed cross, because what would happen was I played the line on the left side more often as a winger, but I was a righty. But they were looking at me like I was a lefty for 20, 30 minutes a game, and I was showing them just that. And then 35 minutes in, all of a sudden now, as I'm driving down the line, they're positioning themselves here, showing me the inside, and I'm like,
you know which clips I love. I love that just shows that if you can do the simple things right, then so many other options open up. And it's Busquets, and like you see Busquets, all those turns and stuff. It's not in the beginning of his career, is it?
No way.
It's in the beginning of his career. He was made and he was known by he's a simple pass. So now later in the end of the career, people started to figure that out. Oh, this guy, he makes a simple pass. And now he's already one step ahead of him. Now I'm like, simple pass, psych, bro.
Yeah.
Send him for a hot dog. Now we play a more incisive pass.
And I want to talk about one more point about confidence is self-belief. Whether you're succeeding or not, you always have to be your biggest support. You have to always believe in your ability to succeed, because the second that you doubt or don't, you will not. So your self-belief, it can't come from external. It has to be an internal motivation, your self-belief and how you believe you can succeed. When that is in place, your relationship to failure is as a teacher, and your willingness to try goes through the roof. That self-belief and that willingness to try will lead to repetition, and repetition will lead to more successes. Confidence is in relation to that whole experience.
Thanks for the question, Brian. It was a great question. It's going to wrap up the Q&A section. And I mean, unfortunately, I got to say, I think we're going to have to push the all-time 11 for next episode.
Yeah, we are. We're
even though you got your whole page prepared.
I did 22 players with 4 honorable mentions in 3 formations from players all the way from the 30s. And Jose doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, here are my players right here, guys. Yeah. Just so you know, yeah.
It was really good. I literally, at least half these players, I'm sure you wouldn't even heard of, because they're timeless generational players before your time. But besides that, yeah,
you forget that people nowadays got FIFA, and these legends that you're talking about, they're legend in FIFA.
Yeah, and
people are playing with them, and like even you said,
going off is FA or FC24's rated version of what they were and what their abilities were. They didn't watch them. They didn't see them.
No, they definitely didn't.
Understanding why they're rated that way, and when you can see those people play, it will remind you of your superstars of today's world. It's the pre-generation to the footballers we're watching play now. Not all. I have some there that are playing now, but a lot of them are well past their point. He almost didn't make it. He made it though. There's no way you can't put him on.
No, you get hate from all of my fans.
So this is Pitchside Prospects, and before we close out this week, I believe
the Youth Football Chronicles.
The Youth Football Chronicles. I believe we would want to mention, in the coming few weeks and months, we're going to be putting out a sign-up letter for personal trainings. And we're not going to be doing one-on-ones. They're going to be group sessions for youth groups of a certain age group, and then older players of a certain age group, where players can come together on Fridays, practice, compete, play, and learn.
This was Pitchside Prospects. Thank you all for tuning in. You got anything else to say?
Good luck in your matches this weekend.
Best of luck to you, boys.